Welcome to Storm Tracker, your eye on the storm of your Carolina Hurricanes, and your home for the best insight and analysis to keep you totally informed on what's happening with the Canes. Whether it's the latest news on the ice or off the ice, we've got you covered. Now let's begin. Here's your host, Tom Ray.
All signs are positive for the Carolina Hurricanes these days. On the ice, the Canes are on a heater, 5-0-1 their last 6 games, and poised to make their move against first place Washington Capitals. Off the ice, huge news on the weekend. Blockbuster deal that brought Mikko Rantanen to the Canes and Taylor Hall. Lots of excitement with the Canes these days. Joining me to talk about news on the ice and off the ice, the Director of Youth Hockey and Community Outreach for the Carolina Hurricanes. We know him better as pre- and post-game and in-between period analyst for FanDuel Sports Network's games, Shane Willis. Welcome, Shane.
It is great to be with you, and as always, what I love to do, talk hockey both on and off the ice today.
Well, that's definitely one of our favorite things too, so it's great. So lots of excitement these days. Caniacs they're pretty high and pretty excited for sure because of both the play of the Canes and obviously the big trade on the weekend. You know, a lot of players left this year. In the summer, we weren't quite sure what to expect. But Eric Tulsky did some great work, and boy, the Canes are doing well, sitting very nicely in second place in the East. What were you thinking when so many players were leaving in free agency and the Canes had to do a bit of a rebuild?
That was probably the question mark of the summer for a lot of people and the fans really as a whole, Tom, was they looked at the pieces that were moving, but many didn't do a deep dive on the guys that Eric Tulsky and his staff were bringing in, because I talked to so many people throughout the summer who were worried, saying that, the Canes are worse, they're going to miss the playoffs. And I said, hold on a second. I said, you have to dive deep into this a little bit and look at look at the pieces that left. And without a doubt, you're going to miss some of these big players. And, Brady Shea was really the question mark for me on the back end for the Hurricanes. But a guy that they bring in on a longer term extension is Scott Walker. And this is a guy who comes in, and I was talking with Mike Maniscalco last year when he left Philly and went to Colorado. I said, Sean Walker's a guy who we should be trading for. And Tulsky goes out, inks him to a deal. He's a great skater. He plays physical. He comes in. And the other guy in the back end that you kind of fill in with offense is Shane Gostisbehere,
of course,
who is absolutely tearing it up in Detroit at the end of the season. And he comes in up front. You look at Roslovic, you look at Robinson, and then you have the wild card factor of the kid in Jackson Blake.
Yes.
So you definitely lost some scoring power and things through the summer, but I still felt very comfortable coming into the season that this team had enough firepower, they added enough pieces. And the one caveat that I love about the pieces they added is that they're hungry guys looking to reestablish their careers. And when you ever have that type of hunger of a guy who knows he's got to play well, you get results. And Eric Tulsky and Rod Brind'Amour have gotten that from this group so far this season.
Well, and Eric talked a lot about the kind of decision-making that took place in selecting these players. They're specifically targeted for the Canes. And again, being players that played Rod Brind'Amour type, Canes hockey, if you will. And we've seen that. And you talk about Sean Walker. I really loved him in Philadelphia. He was playing upwards of 20 minutes there. He was in all situations. Great on the penalty kill. He was doing some power play work. He was doing everything. And I thought he was a guy that could definitely come in and make a difference. And I'm a guy that's been talking a lot about Sean this year and saying, hey, he should be getting more ice time because he's definitely a guy that can eat ice time and do it well. So, yeah, I agree with you on Sean for sure. You look at a couple of the guys that got an opportunity as a result of this, of course, were Dmitry Orlov and Jalen Chatfield. Now, they showed some great stuff in the playoffs last year. We're so impressed with that because they stepped up due to injury situation. They had to play a lot more minutes, and they held their own, I thought, in the playoffs. But you look at their numbers this year, they're incredible. Combined plus 41. They're playing upwards of 2.5 minutes a game more. And the two of them are within the top 12 in plus minus in the league. That's quite a duel.
And the one thing for Tim Gleason on the back end coaching these guys, he hasn't moved them around. He's stuck with his pairs, and they really have pairings that complement each other very, very well. The one thing that I love as a coach when I was coaching youth or when I look at guys coaching the top, when you have righty lefties and you can play your normal sides, it does make the game easier on the back end. And the Hurricanes have that luxury. But Jalen has talked about it early this season, how well he and Dimitri know each other, not only on and off the ice, but how each other plays.
Right.
And I think Dimitri has that size and strength to jump up. He has a very heavy shot. And where I think the factor kind of that determines things for me is people underestimate how well Jalen Chatfield skates.
Oh.
Because he can cover a lot of turf and make up ground if there's a mistake made on either side. So it's a great compliment. They've been great for the Hurricanes, and a lot of people look at that too, right? These two guys are going to slide up into your 3-4 hole. Right. How is that going to look? They've, dominated and played very, very well, as you said, in the plus-minus category.
Well, and of course, they're playing heavy minutes too. So they're great on the penalty kill. They play up against a lot of the tough lines that the Canes do go against. I am a huge Jalen Chatfield fan as well. Boy, you talk about his skating. How many times has he, come back to make plays? With an error in the center ice zone, somebody's breaking in, just because of his speed and his ability to get back quickly. He's tremendous. The other thing
one thing I want to mention too about Jalen Chatfield is, and you look at his journey to the NHL.
Yes,
nothing was given to this young man, and I was watching him the other day in New York, in both days where the team took the ice. This guy never leaves the ice. He is constantly working on something. He was helping and skating with Riley Stillman, who's the extra player who always knows, I got to put in a little bit extra work. I'm not playing. Jalen Chatfield was right beside him, getting in some reps, working on some different things. So he knows what got him to this level with hard work and determination, and he knows what's going to keep him there as well, and he continues to do it on a daily basis.
And, he's another story where Eric Tulsky put together an outstanding deal for the Canes. His value is certainly going to go well beyond what the deal was with the Canes, but it was a good deal for him at the time. I think a very smart move. And again, Chatfield he's a keeper for sure. Let's talk goaltending for a minute. So goaltending, bit of a challenge this year. So we had started the year with the two guys that we're so excited about last year, and then injury strikes, as it did last year. And now you're kind of going to others to try to fill in. And the Canes kind of a little bit of a tough period, a little bit of 500 hockey for a period. I think goaltending was maybe a part of that. But now they've got Freddie back. What are you thinking about the goaltending situation?
Very comfortable right now with Freddie Anderson back and, pitching his first shutout of the season at MSG just the other night for the Carolina Hurricanes. Yes. But I think these two players complement each other very, very well, and how they're built, their demeanor. But knowing the situation, I think when goaltenders have found, and everyone around the league a lot, what I would say is going to a 1A and a 1B, if you will, because they realize the rest and mental preparation for a goaltender is extremely high.
Yes.
And when these guys know their schedule, they seem to play so much better. I think they both have a comfort level. I think Pyotr is better when Freddie Anderson is on the bench. I don't know the exact reason why, but he plays better in the net. Maybe it's a little bit of competition. Maybe it's the comfort knowing that Freddie is there if something is off. I tip my cap to the guys who came through when Freddie was hurt, because obviously that was a low point for the Canes. I think these guys that got the opportunity did well at certain moments. And when things struggled, the Hurricanes quickly moved and had another player step up and kind of continue to battle in a guy like Tokarski. So overall, I think I look at both these guys and I'm very comfortable with the goaltending situation. The factor where some people may say, well, the Hurricanes are giving up more goals. Let's not always just point our finger at the goalies, because I've spoke to Rod Brindamore, and there's been games where he is not happy with how many scoring chances are being given up. Because if you went back to last year, the Hurricanes were so tight defensively.
Yes.
And this year, teams are breaking down the system a little bit. The Hurricanes are making more mistakes, if you will, that are creating chances for other teams, and they've been grade A chances. It's easy to go back and look at it. I would love to find this stat out, but when a puck is turned over at the defensive zone blue line, it seems to always end up in the back of the net. And that's where the Hurricanes have lacked some judgment this season.
Yes.
In those areas where you've turned things over, and all of a sudden we can't just sit here and point at the goalie and be like, what are you doing? I'm like, that was 3 guys just gave the puck away and it's in the net. So I love the goaltending situation. Everyone always wants to have that superstar guy.
Yes.
And I always quickly turn and say, who's going to give you their guy? When you find one and you have one, you don't ever give them away. But the 2 guys that the Hurricanes do have, I think when you have them both and they're both on their game, you definitely have a dynamic duo to backstop you to victories.
Yeah, I mean, last year they showed that. I mean, the from January 1st on, those guys were insane once Freddie came back. I agree on all you're saying, Shane. And that it's been kind of a strange year for the Canes because they're giving up so many of these odd man rushes. And the other thing that I've been really talking a lot about is, Rod Brindamore really loves the team to start on time. And for some reason, the Canes got into a period where they weren't starting on time.
And it's still a little bit there. Yeah. Rod really didn't like the first 2 periods in MSG the other night. He loved his 3rd period. But this team, I agree with you, hasn't had that explosive jumps that we saw last year.
Yeah.
Last year, to me, it was almost like that middle frame was always a little bit of the low for the team for some reason. And now it's the first period, and it's a dangerous place to toy with.
Yes.
Because as you and I know, Tom, that when you get behind in this league, it doesn't matter who you're playing. Tonight, the Hurricanes are going to face off here on Thursday night against the Chicago Blackhawks.
Right.
Young, high-flying team. They got nothing to lose. But if you get behind this team, it's going to be tough to chase them down because they're going to continue to score. They have elite talent, and Rod mentions that all the time. It's a fine line between winning and losing in the National Hockey League, and it makes it that much harder when you're chasing the game.
Yeah, and the Canes have been lucky. They lead the league with 17 come from behind victories, which is amazing. But I think you're right, Shane. You can't keep pushing that button. They've been dodging the bullet with some great second and third periods, but they're going to have to change that. The other thing that I look at with the Canes as well is that they don't seem to be as heavy right now on the puck. Like, we used to see them, their game was, as Rod says, get to their game, and they'd be pushing the other team in the opposition zone, lots of time up there, wearing them down. They don't seem to be getting that as consistent right now. What are you seeing with that?
Yeah, I agree with you. And when this team is on and controlling the puck and you look at offensive zone time, you're winning those 50-50 battles below the goal line, in my mind.
Yeah.
And the one area I think the Hurricanes have came off a little bit is more of that puck possession time. It's almost that they're forcing plays instead of rolling it back down below one more time, utilizing their body, holding on the pucks. And they're dynamic players, there's no question. But when their play's there and it's 30-70, maybe a 30% chance, instead of just holding on and saying, let's reset, let's do it again, they're going for it. And when those plays get broken up or pucks are bouncing around, now it gives teams a chance to shoot it out or get out of their own zone. And I feel they've lacked patience, I think, in a little bit when they've had that puck possession time in the offensive zone. They're still a big, fast, heavy team, but I think they've lacked a little bit of patience when they're in the offensive zone.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the stall line, as it always does, leads by example. And it doesn't seem to matter who's on the wing with those guys, Martinook and Jordan Staal. I mean, they're just getting it done. And it was kind of fun to see Jordan get some goals recently with his little run on offense. I guess there's a lot of excitement around the team. They probably really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I took credit for it because I picked him up in fantasy going into that weekend in our office pool, and everyone's like, what were you thinking there? And I said, I don't know. It was his brother's retirement weekend. I figured the family would fire him up coming in. And he definitely went off that weekend while the family was in town. He's continued. I mean, he always plays great with his size and strength, and sometimes he's just snake bitten at times that he can't find the back of the net. But he's always doing it right, as we hear the head coach say. And it was nice to see him get rewarded there for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned the big event with Eric. How was that? How did you enjoy that?
Monumental. I think a lot of people overlook the fact that you don't see many of these in your time. Certain teams have gone through them. You look at the Rangers, Raptors, and Montreal Canadiens, Toronto, but teams like the Carolina Hurricanes, this is number 4. And it's been 17 years since we saw the last one in Rod Brindamore go to the roof. So I always was talking to our fans saying, you need to get a ticket to this. Like, you might not see this again in your time here. And it's a special weekend. Besides going into the Hall of Fame, it's probably the highest honor any player can receive, is having their jersey retired. And it was a special moment. I think it showed a lot about Eric Staal, what kind of a person, what he meant to this organization and city, with how many people came out, former teammates, staff, and then the fans as a whole. The Staal family are great people. Eric, gave a great speech and talking about that. And when you look around the hockey world, and if people sat around and talked about hockey families, the Staal family would be in there as such a powerful and strong and character type family that was a huge part of the National Hockey League and the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, for sure. And they've always been leading by example. When Eric was captain, of course, now with Jordan as captain, I've always loved the Staals. Now, you're a Western Canada guy, right? You played for Swift Current and Lethbridge back in the day. That's a great breeding ground. And one of the things I talk to a lot of folks about is I just think the quality of players and individuals in the game are amazing. And you say that about the Staals, but I think it's universal.
Yeah. I mean, we get such great people, and it's funny because people always ask me about our team now, and I said we might have the nicest team I've ever been around. And it kind of goes back to the head coach, because every time you hear Rod asked a question about a person in his room or one of his players, the first thing he says, he goes, "Well, they're great people," right? And that's a big box. It's on the check mark when players are being looked at to become a Carolina Hurricanes player. It's, what type of person are they? Yeah. Is this the type of person that we want to be part of our culture? And are they going to be that piece we need? And, Rod looks at it, Eric looks at it, Tom Dundon looks at it, and it's a big part before, you get offered a contract or a trade is made to come here and put on this jersey, because it means a lot to the people that are here.
Yeah. And you mentioned Tom Dundon, and I did a piece on Tom last fall. I think he's incredible. The way that he's taken this team, and certainly he's had his finger on all of it in different ways. And he doesn't get enough credit, in my view. You still have these folks hammering on the different social media sites about Cheap Tom and all this jazz. They don't have a clue. I think he's just done a phenomenal job, and it's reflected in the whole kind of character of the team.
I laugh when I see those things all the time, and I'm wondering if these people have ever looked at the salary cap websites to show that we're at the cap. I don't know what people would like to do to get higher than that. I think a lot of people get stuck in the fact of you don't have that one high paid player. But what I love about Tom Dundon's approach with his staff is saying, we are going to build a team. And I use the Toronto Maple Leafs because they're the easiest target, being a Western Canadian guy. We don't
of course
like the Leafs. I was an Oilers guy growing up. So when you look at the Leafs, they have 4 players that are getting paid over $10 million. And how has that worked for them lately? Yeah. Because you need other pieces around. You can't be built like a basketball team. It just doesn't work in this sport. And Rod knows that. He wants quality people. And the other big piece that I love, some players probably don't love it, is if you're a young player, if you're Sebastian Aho, if you're Andrei Svechnikov, if you're Jacob Slavin, you're going to get the long-term deal, because you're cornerstones of this organization. Yes. Other than that, he's not willing to handcuff the organization to something that's going to hurt them down the road, where then they cannot spend at a trade deadline. You cannot go out and get a guy because you're strapped to 2 guys that you had to buy out that didn't work out. Also known as the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild are about to come out of it. They're about to come out of the Zach
Oh man,
Parise.
yeah, they had a couple of guys, Parise and
Ryan Suter,
yes.
Zach Parise contracts are about to come over. I think there'll be going to be a celebration in Minnesota when that comes off the books, because now you can add pieces to your team. And Minnesota's a great team, but they can't do anything. And I think people overlook the fact of that when these offerings come out, or Tom is signing people that are like, why didn't they sign them for 6 years? Because most of those guys get bought out, and you're still stuck with that in your cap.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly one of the hallmarks of the Hurricanes so far, is that they've certainly stayed away from these later period contracts, long-term deals that, as you say, they don't age well. Just want to touch.
That's the one guy we laugh all the time, because I always say that's the one guy who's undefeated, and his name is Father Time. He's undefeated. He never loses.
That's exactly right. Now, you have the odd person that kind of defies that, like Brent Burns and others, but
yes,
for sure. Hey, just one last thing on the ice I wanted to catch, and that's the power play. And, a lot of us sitting here wondering, I look back at the numbers. I thought I'd just take a quick look and see what the Canes have been doing this year. And in October, they were at 29%, November 25%. These are outstanding numbers. And then 23.7 in December, still going well. And then the wheels came off, 5.4% so far in January. I mean, this is hard to believe. What's going on?
Characteristic for the amount of talent that's on the ice, without a doubt. I like to see power plays over 25% for sure. I harped hard on the Hurricanes last year, and Mike was like, wow, that's a strong number. But I think you need to be in the top 5 on your PK and your power play.
Right.
To be one of the best in the league, you have to make your power play run and sting teams. Early in the season, it was rolling. And it is a big momentum thing, without a doubt. Momentum is a huge factor on the power play when things get rolling. A key piece that went down was Shane Gostisbehere and how well he was playing offense on the power play early in the season. Now you've added a few new pieces with the big trade with Rantanen and Hall coming in.
Yes.
So now you're trying to mix in new pieces to your power play and move things around. Natchez is out. Drury was also on the power play.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit of a momentum thing. And when the power play is rolling, the puck is moving. And Rod talks about this all the time, and he uses his father-in-law as a great example, because he was a great basketball coach down here. He says, a great basketball team, the ball is always moving. It's never sitting in one place. And he resembles a power play that way too. If you're getting the puck in the power play, and a lot of it comes down to confidence, you're holding, and then you're moving. And that guy's holding and holding, moving. It's easier to defend. But when it's on its game and it's sharp and it's bang, 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 and there's a shot, then it's continuing bang, 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 which we saw in October, November.
Exactly.
It will roll. And they have the skill. And right now, I think they're lacking a little bit of confidence in that quickness. Again, teams are watching more and more video, and they're dialing in to defend it. But puck has to move quicker in my mind, and that's been lacking, as you said, through the month of January.
Yeah, and you see the power plays that seem to have a lot of success, have a lot of motion, as you say. And and one of the things that I think with Shane Gostisbehere, what he really added from my viewpoint was a guy that could get on that blue line and move from side to side, which is really incredible. If he can get to the center of the blue, that is a very, very dangerous spot. And probably the best guy we see is Cale Makar. But if you can kind of do that, and I think Shane does that well, I think you've got a real shot to make things happen. But the movement's key. Yep. Now, something interesting I saw was that, of course, Shane had been doing a lot of good work with Marty Natchez. So he was feeding him in those, that sweet spot for the one-timer frequently. And I noticed in the first couple of games with Mikko Rantanen, he seems to be getting a similar kind of, continuity, getting it over to him quickly. And, again, Rantanen just figuring things out, but he was getting shots off. And that was encouraging to me because, it's not on the other side. It was on the left side before. Now it's on the right. But Shane showed that he can handle that quite nicely.
Yeah, it's a different look. Now you have Aho on his side skating downhill, as Rod likes to talk about, on his regular side on the left side as the quarterback, who can now feed his great friend through that seam for a big shot.
Yes.
And I think the one thing that I love about it, it's only been 2 games so far, is now teams are trying to adjust because you mentioned with Marty Necas, it's all coming off the left side because he's a righty on the one-timer.
Correct.
Now teams are trying to adjust because the Canes are going the other direction now. How do we defend this big guy over here? Ahu's got the puck on his stick here. He can shoot. He can pass to the middle to a guy. Svech is there. So he's the quarterback. He has three options now, who's Svech, Rantanen, or Gostisbehere back at the top. But the puck has to move. There's got to be shots. It's got to be chaotic in a way to start breaking teams down. And I always tell people, I said, I'm not greedy. I don't need 2-3 power play goals a night. But in those key moments, if the game is tied or maybe you're up by 1 or 2, it's kind of the dagger that you need to put teams away. And that's what's lacked for me a little bit on the power play, is just those key moments and those key goals.
Yeah, and sometimes they change the entire temperature of the game. Because you miss on your power play, and the next thing you know, the other team scores and you're done. Talking about Mikko and Taylor Hall. So last Friday, some of us were shocked. I literally fell out of my chair. I almost hurt myself. Really didn't expect it. I mean, we've been talking a lot about, Eric Tulsky has been definitely out and about as he does, and the Canes usually are. And we thought it was going to be Vancouver. And we've been talking a lot about JT Miller and of course, Elias Pettersson. So when it was Mikko Rantanen, we were caught off guard in a good way. But what was going through your mind, Shane? Did you think this was coming, or was it a bit of a surprise? And then what's your thinking now?
Well, I was as shocked as anybody was, because this was a very well-kept secret around our organization and really around the league. Usually somebody slips something out. And this one, Mike Maniscalco and I were actually at dinner in Garden City in New York while we waited to take on the Islanders, and our phone started buzzing with people saying, "Is this real? Did you see this?" And I was like, "What are people talking about?"
What's going on?
So, we started looking and talking about it. I'm like, this is real. And, first reports came out that it was Necas and Kotkaniemi, and then it came down to realizing it was Necas and Drury. That was the official deal with the picks, with Chicago involved to take on some money.
Yeah.
A creative deal. I love the deal. I think it's hard from a business standpoint when you talk about the relationships to move a guy like Marty Necas with a skill level. And without a doubt, do I think Marty Necas gets 100 points in this league at some point? Yes. And do I think Jack Drury becomes a bona fide star in this league and maybe a captain or assistant captain? Without a doubt. But you have to also look at what you brought back, a guy in Mikko Rantanen who has been in the top 5 in scoring in the past 5 years, right? Behind superstars of David Draisaitl and his line mate McKinnon. Yes. So why wouldn't you want that in your roster? Yeah. And then Taylor Hall, a former first overall pick, who I go back to the hunger factor of really wanting something.
Yes.
This guy's been in there's been some things said about Taylor Hall, and I said, this guy's been in terrible situations.
Yeah.
On some bad teams over the past few years. It's hard. I said, as any guy would, I'll tell you, if you're on a bad team, it's hard to be motivated on a daily basis to be like, let's go get it, boys. But I saw last game a little hunger in Taylor Hall against the Rangers. He was dynamic and he was creating some things. So as I mentioned, tonight being Thursday to play the Hawks, I think these two guys in front of this building are going to get a warm reception. The electricity, and you're never forgetting, and people, you just move on from players. You're never forgetting Marty Necas and Jack Drury and what they meant to the organization. But there will be an energy tonight when Mikko Rantanen and Taylor Hall come over the boards. And I feel one of them scores tonight. And, as they say, the rest is history, and this team gets on, as you said, a big run.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a couple of things I liked about it. Taylor Hall is a guy that I've always liked. And something, I mean, similar to what you're saying, Shane, is that, Taylor is a guy who was a Hart Trophy winner, 2017-18. He's a guy that I've always felt that he can skate like mad. He's strong as anything. And I think that's a thing that a lot of folks aren't aware of, just how strong that Taylor Hall is. And
he's bigger than you expect.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and think about this. I mean, when we talked a little bit about the trade the other day, and here's what we were thinking too. You've just added 2 big bodies, okay? And you've taken out a couple of slight guys, and you've changed the temperature of the hockey club.
Yep. So you and I both know. what happened last couple? Oh, the Hurricanes got pushed around a little bit.
Yes.
You're not moving the Moose. He's nicknamed the Moose for a reason.
Exactly.
And when Taylor Hall did walk in, I was like, maybe I need to look at his stats closer, because I'm like, well, he's bigger than I thought he'd be, you know. But I always tell people too, I'm like, you're drafted first overall into the National Hockey League.
Yes.
You don't lose that skill. That skill is never leaving you. He has it. He has that ability, and I think Rod Brindamore is the perfect coach to get this guy rolling.
Well, I mean, Taylor has said that repeatedly in the last few days. I mean, he thinks this is the perfect match for him, and he wants to prove. And I think you mentioned that in the broadcast the other day too, Shane. He wants to prove that he can do it.
Yes.
He wants to be a difference maker.
Yeah, he's searching for something everyone does. Whether you're a first overall pick or your last pick in the draft, what are you searching for in your career? A Stanley Cup.
Stanley Cup. And he hasn't
and
been.
Now he is in a position that a team has that ability. They're going to have the opportunity to go after it. It wasn't going to be there in Chicago. It wasn't there in Arizona.
No.
It wasn't there in Buffalo. It's kind of there in Boston when he was there, but I mean, other than that, this guy's been chasing it for a long time.
Well, you mentioned Boston. He had a great year in Boston, and right. In the playoffs as well. So, yeah, bounce back year. I mean, the big challenge with Taylor, of course, has been injuries. And last year, of course, a torn ACL. He was out quick. And gosh, we've seen torn ACLs here before. Not the best situation. But here's the other thing we're thinking about. I wanted to get your feeling about this, back to the heaviness. So you think about the Stahl line, which is always a heavy line and does their good work in the offensive zone. Now you're bringing another really heavy line. So if you've got Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi, and Taylor Hall, man, you're throwing a couple of big lines out there.
Without a doubt. And you are now, again, Seth Jarvis is with what he calls the dads. That just are going to grind you down. He's not afraid of anything.
Right.
And then you look at the top line with Rantanen, Aho, and Jackson Blake. You have three really, really dynamic lines that can come at you.
Yeah.
And as I've told everyone, and if you watch anything Eric Tulsky said over the past few days, I don't think he's done. I just think he is always talking to people. He's always wondering questions. What do you know with that guy? What do you know with that guy? And he and Tom Dunn are always talking of like, does this make us better?
Yes.
That's the only question you have to ask. And if it's a no, you move on. If it's a yes, then you explore what it's about. And it's all the time. It's every week. So don't be surprised if something else goes down where he's trying to make this team better. And you and I talked about it. Do you need a centerman? Maybe.
Yeah.
Right? So you go out there and look at, can you find another, big body, right-handed centerman?
Yes.
You're not looking for the superstar. I'm not saying you're going to get Connor McDavid, everybody. That's not going to happen.
I'll take him.
Yeah, I will take him. I mean, if he's available, we'll talk. But I think there's players out there that fit that bill.
Yes.
That would be a key. Again, you're putting together a puzzle and you're always missing pieces. So until you find those pieces, you're always looking.
Well, Eric has moved from the kind of position of a relatively new general manager to getting a lot of attention in the stratosphere. Folks starting to realize just how incredibly brilliant this man is, and so many of the deals he's put together they've been kind of off the charts. They've been different in some cases. The way he kind of packaged the finances in some of the deals, certainly signing players for the kind of contracts he did. He's just a wizard, and we're just delighted we've got Eric in that position. And I agree with you. He's got some more moves up his sleeve for sure. And you look at the Canes right now. What do you think the Canes need if they want to go deep or go all the way right now? What do you think they need to shore up?
Well, you and I talked about one thing. I think the power play needs to heat up. I think that's an area where the superstars can get things rolling. And you're only 2 games into the new additions. So you want to see continued chemistry and growth from those 2 players inside and outside of this locker room on the ice. The goaltenders are now back, right? You have Freddie Anderson back, who we're going to celebrate tonight before the game with his milestones, and Pyotr. And then the big caveat, Tom, as you and I know, down the stretches for these teams is health.
Yes.
And, I always go back to, Florida was banged up the year they lost to Vegas. Vegas didn't have anybody. None of their starters went down that entire playoff run. People miss that fact. Florida was banged up. Kachuk could barely skate, right? And then last year, Florida came away unscathed. Sure, they were banged up and battered and bruised, but they didn't lose anybody in a major asset role to go and win the Stanley Cup. And that's a big, big factor for teams that are able to win it, is the health card and how healthy are you to get through the playoffs.
Well, who do you think, if you were going to pick a small list of teams, who do you think the teams are that we're going to have to beat to win the Cup, say in the East and the West? Who do you think they'd be?
Well, I keep looking and keep waiting, and I guess I'm going to have to maybe tip my hat at some point, but I keep waiting for the Caps to slide, and they're not. Like, I keep waiting for the bump in the road for the Washington Capitals, and all they do is keep winning. Yeah. And I'm just like, well, okay, maybe they are real. So you're going to have to go against one of our arch rivals to get out of the Metro. Yes. And the Washington Capitals, I feel that the Canes and the Caps are kind of above all others. New Jersey was making the steps, I thought. I think the injury to Markstrom, it's hard on them. They're still young. They're high flying. Are they ready? I'm not sure. So I like the Caps. I think the Leafs are just that high-powered offense. And then to me, the other team in the East will be the Florida Panthers once again. Oh. I think they're just big, strong, and powerful in the East to get out and challenge somebody in the West. In the West, I think you play your usual cards of the Dallas, Colorado, Edmonton. But the one team, and I don't mind it, I'd love to see the energy there they'll have a little bit to say about, is the Winnipeg Jets at the end of the day.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Great team. Well, all good choices.
Yeah. I mean, in my perfect world, being a Canadian, I'd love to see the Canes play a Canadian team in the finals.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. The other team that would be fun would be the Colorado Avalanche, of course.
That would be interesting. Yes. We'd have a few stories. We'd have some stories to work on, Tom.
Yeah, you'd have a lot you could get behind in that one. Well, we have one of our insiders, of course, who's on regularly, Katie Bartlett, is both a Canes and Avalanche fan. So she was in full form in our last podcast. It was great. And she said, man, this is the best situation you could ever be when you have a trade like this and you cheer for both teams.
Yeah, she no doubt she's got a little bit of best of both worlds.
Well, talking about the Capitals, we've been saying the same thing for months on the podcast, that we just wait for them to fall on their sword. But I heard somewhere, and you can maybe confirm this, that Rod Brind'Amour had said they play Canes hockey, but better. I don't know if that's true or not. But
well, Rod's hard on his boys, so I'm not going to say better. But I did tell somebody the other day, and this is not a slight to Rod Brind'Amour and what he does, because I love the way he coaches. If the season was to end right now, and I don't know if anyone can even catch him, right, I would have to say Carberry in Washington wins Coach of the Year, hands down.
For sure.
Because the turn that team has made has been amazing.
Yeah, and
because it goes back to the one thing that's always been a group they won a Stanley Cup. Yes. And they were playing together. It's a matter of, do you play the right way? And how he has him playing heavy. He has him playing mean, but they're playing strong defensively. And at the end of the day, when they're getting goaltending like Logan Thompson is giving them, you have a chance to win every night when you got firepower up front.
Yeah, and Lindgren as well. I mean, their goaltending has been off the charts. But you know what? They do it by committee, right? Yeah, and I mean, they even had Ovechkin was out for a while. They kept winning. It didn't matter. And you see some of the players that are leading them, and they're not names that you and I would jump out at and say, oh, wait a minute, like, Protas and some of the other guys, Strome and all these guys. Great team. And I love watching them because they do play the game in the right way. And as you say, I think Spencer Carberry he's incredible. So, yeah, it'd be a great series if we, played those guys. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And if our goaltenders are healthy, I think they can hold up quite nicely against Washington as well. Let's talk about Four Nations for a couple of minutes too, Shane. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. We got 4 guys going, which is great. We've upped that with Rantanen joining, which is kind of exciting. This is a huge tournament. I don't know if a lot of folks really see the significance of this tournament, but I think it's huge.
Without a doubt. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because the players going in, a lot of guys haven't talked a lot about it. They're excited to go, but it'll be interesting to see when the puck is dropped, the intensity level of where it's at and how hard these guys are going, because past experiences, whether it be the Olympics or these type of tournaments, it gets pretty intense.
Yeah.
There's a lot on the line for these guys. I'm excited because I think this is going to be much better than watching an all-star game.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't remember when the last time I watched an all-star game was, because it's gotten to the point of like, are we just shooting pucks around? What are we doing out here? Wow. So I'm excited to watch these games. I think it'll be great hockey. Anytime you can put the best of the best against each other in a little mini tournament, why wouldn't you do it? I loved it when they're in the Olympics. So it's going to be great hockey and an exciting time, both for the cities of Montreal and Boston.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's again, a great representation. All top players that are going to be going up against each other. It's going to be exciting. And of course, now that we've got 2 players on Finland, that's going to raise the ante a little bit on the Finnish side. So that's kind of cool. And speaking about Team Finland, some rumors that Jesperi Kotkaniemi might be a possible if Eric Haula can't go. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe that is very, very accurate. And I think the way he's played over the last 2 weeks will help his case.
Yes.
I think he's been very, very good, utilizing his size, his strength. And Jesperi Kotkaniemi is a guy I think this organization has a lot of belief in. And they're just waiting for it to fully catch, right? To fully be that consistent, heavy piece, put in the puck on that, making plays that everyone thinks he can be. And it's just a matter of time. And maybe if he gets into this tournament, if he goes with Team Finland, then he becomes, and it takes that confidence piece to another level for him. But he's played very, very well over the past couple of weeks for Rod Brind'Amour.
Yeah, he sure has. And he's such an enigma because at different points, he just looks the part. You know, 2C, he's a big guy. He's out there making it happen. He's using the body. He's making great plays. I mean, one thing I've always been impressed with Jesperi is the way he dishes off the puck. He's great at getting it to the point, guys. He does a lot of things well. But then he gets into these periods where he just doesn't seem to have any confidence, and he doesn't look anything like, what he can look when he's playing well. What do you think about that?
I was sitting at a practice a couple of weeks ago, and I never really thought about it because I don't see him shoot a lot. Okay. And I was sitting with Justin Williams and talking with him. He said, he's probably got the second hardest shot in the team. And I turned and looked at him and I said, are you for real? I'm like, why doesn't he shoot more? He's like, why do you think I keep talking to him about it? Because he's got an absolute rocket. And I was like, so I started watching it lately. I'm like, he does have a rocket. Why doesn't he use that thing more? Because he scored a couple of goals. I can't remember where it was this year. It was at home. It was across the blue, and he made one quick move inside and ripped it top corner. And it was a bullet. And I think it goes so far back to confidence and getting in those positions, and it's there. It just hasn't, he hasn't hit the home run with a long stretch to kind of take him to that next level. And he's playing very well right now. But I think if he did get selected to go to 4 Nations, I think that may take him to another level.
Yeah, sure. And that'd be huge for him. And I think his new line mates, I think they could be a big boost for him as well. Svechnikov is playing very well right now. Obviously, he had a couple of goals the other night. And I think Taylor Hall coming in on that other wing brings another dimension to that line. So, it's quite different than the line he had before. If you think about Robinson and Marty Necas, this is quite a different line. And I think they're well suited together. So I have high hopes he's going to continue his fine play.
Yeah, those 3 should have the puck a lot with their frames and their bodies throwing around. Again, I wouldn't want to be a defenseman on their team with that line coming into corners when I had the puck. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think for sure when Jesperi is using the body and doing what he can on a heavy forecheck type, mission, when he gets into that frame of mind, I think he's very, very strong out there. So we got lots of hopes. I don't see the Canes doing anything with him in the near term. He's been in so many trade rumors. He's been in just about every deal you think about. And it's time for that to kind of settle down and just let him come in and be the player that I think that he can be. And we're big fans of Kotkaniemi in our podcast for sure. So high hopes for this young man. Shifting gears for a minute, I thought we'd talk a little bit about your other role. So Director of Youth Hockey and Community Outreach, you've been doing this for a while. One of the things I've been reading up on and really exciting is the first goal program. And I see that over 4,500 boys and girls have been in this program since 2016. This is quite a story.
Yeah, probably I would have to argue one of the best parts of my job because I get to be a kid. Obviously, there's a big organizational factor and communicating with families who have never played the sport before. And this program allows kids to get involved in hockey. And I hear so many great stories from people on the concourse during games or when I run into them in the rink and they're telling me you coached my son or daughter the first time they got on the ice and they're absolutely hooked. They love it. They're having so much fun. I had a young guy last night. We had an autograph event and his mom said, well, tell him. He's playing, recreational hockey now. And he said, I scored a hat trick last weekend. And like to hear those stories, it kind of just takes me back to being a kid. So when we get to do this at a very low cost to families to get them attached to our game, and there's so many different facets of it from the parents to the kid themselves who are playing and what they can get from this sport. I'll argue with anybody. It's one of the best in the world to get your kids involved in from a team aspect, the physical part of things and the health part of things that hockey can provide, but also the friendships and family that you make for a lifetime. It's been a huge piece of our culture here in Raleigh. And as you mentioned, to go over 4,500, and we're going to go over 5,000 this year to continue to spread across our state. We're running low on rinks and ice time, which is exciting. And then also getting nationally recognized at certain levels with the talent level of pool we have here. I mentioned Justin Williams a little while ago. His son's team is ranked in the top 10 in the country right now.
Wow.
So they're a U16 team. They're ranked in the top 10 and looking to make a run at a national championship. So when you're hearing stories like that, or you're hearing stories of, a team from Raleigh, North Carolina won a tournament in Detroit, it's exciting because I always go back. I was one of the guys that was sitting here, and when I played here, everyone's saying, wow, hockey's not going to work in the South, right? It's not going to work there. I mean, this is a hockey hotbed right now, and the first goal program has been a huge part of it, and it's an exciting time through the summer to be on the ice with these kids and, giving back in that way, getting more and more families involved in our sport.
Now, I think I might have heard this. Riley Stillman and Skylar Brindamore were in that program as well.
Yeah, they grew up here. Obviously, Riley Stillman a little bit of a shorter period because his dad moved on after being here. But Skylar Brindamore growing up playing here for a very long time. A number of players that have come out of Raleigh, North Carolina are playing Division I, Division III hockey around the country right now, different levels of junior. So it's exciting. You mentioned those names. That was when I first started in my position here. I coached Skylar when he was 12. We went up to the Quebec International Tournament, so that makes me feel old because I know he's in Chicago now playing. But so many great players, so many talented players are, girls and women's hockey is exploding, which is also exciting to see here in the city and be a part of that as well.
Well, and I did see that Elisa Gagliardi had been very much involved in that, and I know she's done some coaching stints at different times in the off season and so on with the Canes. Having someone like that involved really, again, takes it up a notch, right? Yeah,
I think when you're putting pieces in place, and that was one area when I first started, it was how do we get more girls playing the game? And I'm sitting there, I'm a 40-year-old guy trying to connect with kids, and you go to these meetings and talk to a lot of people, and I found very quickly how representation is a huge part of that. Yeah. Because a young girl is not going to always connect with me, and I can't be on that level. And when Alyssa first came onto our staff years ago, I immediately saw it. I could see a different look in young girls when they were looking at Alyssa than when I was standing on the ice. I was on the ice. I played in the NHL. These young girls could care less. But there was an older female on the ice teaching them hockey. She was cool, and they wanted to talk to her. And she spearheaded what we're doing now. She's obviously moved on. She's up in the Rochester area coaching now at higher levels. Sarah Swingle is now working alongside me in that area and doing a tremendous job as well. And so much of it comes down to not only getting more girls playing, which we are through First Goal and Learn to Play Hockey, but then creating that structure and that ecosystem for them to succeed. And you put a pathway ahead with very good teams, because when girls come up, they think, I have to play with the boys. Well, no, you don't, because we have a great girls team that can take you and get you to achieve your goals. which is playing girls hockey. It's not playing boys hockey.
Right.
It's playing girls hockey. So Sarah's done a great job in creating a culture and an ecosystem for young girls to succeed now. And we're looking forward to exciting things in the future for our young girls in the area as well.
Well, big news, of course, is that the PWHL is going to have a game in Raleigh March 7th. And I've been following that league very closely. I think it's phenomenal. The hockey's great. I think it's just wonderful for the sport. So might be some players that in the days ahead, Shane, will be heading from the program here and up into the pro ranks and certainly into the PWHL.
We're so excited to host that game. We've been on phone calls over the past few weeks with their organization, the PWHL, and making sure there's practice ice ready. How many kind of events can we put around it to put their players, once again, when I talk about representation, getting these players on the ice with young girls in our area, trying to fill this building for the game. That Friday night is going to be exciting, and it will be. We talk about young girls, and now they have, right? When girls were playing hockey before, they were looking at colleges and things like that, but now you can see, you can have a dream of saying, I'm going to play professional one day, right? I'm going to play on a professional women's hockey team, and you have a dream to truly chase down. And so it's exciting for young girls. I think the league is in a very, very strong position. And as they go around continuing to showcase what they have. And what you mentioned, if you've never seen a women's game before, I hope a lot of people are buying tickets right now, because I think you'll be taken back a little bit with the physicality, with the intensity and the skill that these women have. And it's going to be a great game here between Minnesota and Ottawa in March.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched a number of games, and you're right. It's great hockey. Now, this might be something to whisper into Tom's ear and say, maybe time to think about a franchise move into the Triangle area and bring in a PWHL team.
Yeah, I mean, those are always the conversations. And I think with what is being built here internally inside this arena, and then what he is, committed to doing outside with our community, as I mentioned, no different than trades. Mr. Dundon is always looking on how to improve, how to bring the next big thing of a true destination point to the entertainment arena here. And, it's going to be an exciting time to see these ladies come down.
Yeah, I mean, it's the story, as you talked a little bit about before, Shane, around hockey and the way that things have developed in the Triangle area over these years. I mean, I think back to the Peter Karmanos reign, and not a lot of fun. We had some many years of kind of tough slugging, and just to see what's happened in terms of, the Canes, just the way they've kind of gone forward and played so well. Hockey in the area, the good work you're doing and your team's doing. Some of the other opportunities with the development around, Lenovo Center and so on. It's marvelous.
Yep. And I mean, Tom, I'm going to, always point out the obvious. Winning makes our job easy.
Yes.
So Rod Brindamore and, the management team here and a winning team on the ice and that winning culture obviously energizes the community, but the organization is, and I've been a small piece of being part of our community. And we go back to Peter Karmanos. That was the one thing when I played here, the building wasn't full, but that's the one thing he knew. He's like, how do we stay connected to this community? And he was fully bought into Raleigh, even when people were against it. And my team and our other community members are continuing to push the envelope of how do we make sure our brand is involved in schools, in ball hockey, which we're creating a couple new brand new ball hockey rinks now, growing the game in any way we can, because we know not every boy or girl is going to be able to skate and go to the rinks and become a hockey player.
Right.
But maybe they can play ball hockey, right? Maybe they can play street hockey. How do we grow the sport that way and continue to spread our brand across this great state? And right now it's red hot. So we're just trying to do everything we can to kind of ride that wave. As we know, the wave will come and go, right? It'll get smaller at some point, but our community involvement and our dedication to this state will never change. And I think that's what people love about this organization.
Yeah, and you talk about ball hockey and street hockey. Hey, I grew up on that in Canada. I was out in the West for many years, as you were.
It was the full. I joke all the time because people are like, "You guys play every night?" I'm like, almost. There'd be a line at the office to use the phone, right? Because we didn't have cell phones, to call your parents and be like, "I'm not gonna be home after school. We're going to play." And there was a street we would go to, and I mean, it was 20 guys. We had full line changes going on.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and get that going in Raleigh.
Well, that's great. And I can tell you that playing minor hockey and all the things that you're trying to accomplish with young people in your area as well, Shane, was great. It was so much for me. It helped me in so many ways. And I know that it's going to be great for those kids that can get involved as well. It's a lot of fun, the camaraderie, the competition. I can go on and on. It's just an awesome thing.
Yep. It's again, I always tell people I'm driving to work, and I'm a big people watcher. So I always look at people when they're driving their cars. I'm like, I got a smile on my face. I get to come in here and I get to watch professional hockey. I get to talk about it on TV. Then I get to go to schools and introduce kids to the sport and street hockey, or I go to the rink and teach a kid how to skate for the very first time. I said, I got it pretty good right now. So I have fun every day when I come to work. I have a great team and people around me, and we'll continue to move the needle and, drive that up here in this city.
Well, you know what? Similar for me. Hockey's my obsession, I guess. And so being able to talk hockey with people like you, Shane, of course, it doesn't get any better. Hey, as we wrap up, final thoughts.
Well, it'll be an exciting second half. I think we got a few games to go before, as you and I talked about, the Four Nations Cup break. I think the players with a condensed schedule are ready for a little bit of a break.
Yes.
But there won't be any dull moment in March and April as these teams make a run towards the playoffs. And when you get there, and I think the standings all reset to 0, you never know what's going to happen. And I feel there's still going to be some big moves out there. The Hurricanes, being one of them. But Rod Brindamore really loves this group. He loves this team. And I think this city is really ready to make a very, very deep run in the playoffs. A couple disappointing ends to the season the last couple of years in the second round, but so they're ready for a deep one, and it's going to be an exciting March and April ahead of the Carolina Hurricanes, Tom.
Yeah, and a lot of folks thought this was a transition year. Guess again.
Yeah, never say never. Everyone thinks it's always a transition year until it isn't, but you got to have, I think that's the hard part. People, you have to have that belief. You have to get outside of thinking that, the one move can't totally flip you to the other side. It's a knee-jerk reaction. I talked about this the other day after the trade was made, and then the Hurricanes lose to the Islanders. It was classic fashion, right? Because
of course,
as humans, we want instant gratification. We want Rantanen to score a hat trick. We want Taylor Hall to have 2 points. What happened? How do you lose that game? I'm like, this is professional sports. This is not, you have to think realistic. And Rod says it all the time, people don't like the word process because they don't want to wait. There is a process. I think these guys will be great tonight against the Hawks, especially in the energy in this building. So I'm ready. I'm ready for a little bit of a break, Tom, as we see it coming ahead, and then, wind it up for March and April in the playoffs.
Well, for sure. And Shane, this has been a great amount of fun talking hockey with you. And I just want to thank you for spending the time with me to talk about the Hurricanes.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure, Tom. We'll do it again sometime. Maybe as the playoffs approach, we'll talk the matchups and see how far we can make this thing run into the heat of the summer here in North Carolina.
That would be my pleasure. I was going to ask you if you'd be willing to come back and spend a couple of minutes with me because, it's so exciting to cheer for a team like the Hurricanes. And as I mentioned before, there were years when it wasn't quite the same. But in any case...
those are the years I was on the ice, Tom. Let's not talk about them.
I didn't say anything about it. No, I know for sure that... Look at you. You made great contributions when you were a Cane, and of course, you've been doing some great work now. And thanks for all of that. And on behalf of the fans and ourselves here at Storm Tracker. For those of you who have been watching or listening, thanks for spending time with us. I hope you enjoyed this opportunity to hear from Shane. And if you like this episode, please press the like button. If you have any questions or comments for Shane, I'll try to get them to him, and we'll respond just as quickly as possible. If you want to be alerted of future episodes of Storm Tracker, please press the subscribe and the bell button, and you'll be made aware as soon as they're. Again, Shane and I thank you for joining us today, and look forward to getting together with you real soon right here on Storm Tracker.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends for everything with the Canes you need. Storm Tracker.